Hello and welcome. Joining me today is Sara Rebolo, partner at Prime Legal in Lisbon, a firm that has become a powerhouse in the world of Portuguese golden visas and real estate law. Sara didn't just join the immigration wave, she helped build it, managing the team of 15 plus specialists through some of the most volatile regulatory shifts in European immigration history. We are going to dive into what she calls the carousel of citizenship law and how Sara maintains a premium client experience when the government changes the rules mid-game. We will also talk about the war for talent in Lisbon and how she identifies the future leaders in a market where everyone is trying to jump and start their own firm. Sarah, welcome to the Girl Switch.
Thank you so much, Alex, for the invitation to be here. It is a pleasure.
Our pleasure to have you. Sarah, take us back to 2013, before you jumped in the world of immigration. What were your career looked like at that point?
So I left the university and I joined the first firm that I ever worked. I stayed there for 15 years. At that moment, I was doing labor and corporates, and I love it. Fires and dismissals, a little bit of court also. The corporate aspects, I also love it. And then at some point, there was a new program coming out, the Golden Visa, and the law firm decided to create an immigration department, and I were allocated to that department.
What initially attracted you to the immigration work when that became available?
Well, at that moment, not the law itself,
Right.
because I was not fan of public law. I always
Hmm.
prefer private law, but I love to organize things. And at that moment, we were working with a lot of Asian clients. It was a new process. It was necessary to create proceedings, to train the team, to define what is the model work with this kind of partner, that kind of partner, what are the steps that needs to be taken to achieve certain results. So more the organization side, and that was the appealing at that moment to bring something from scratch.
What was the most challenging, but maybe also the most rewarding experience of starting that practice completely from scratch?
The challenges definitely were the fact that for the first time in that office, someone had to work, or someone, no, that team in particular, we were the only ones that we had to work at weekends.
Mm.
Weekends and public holidays. So we need to have the calendars where we divided the team for each weekend of the month, because indeed we receive a lot of clients, and those clients, they stayed in Portugal for 3 5 days maximum. So we had to organize the documentation to have them
Hmm.
signing in the days that they were available. So we had to organize ourselves and our lives, and so at least one weekend per month we were allocated to the office to receive clients. And it's a different perspective going to the office in the weekend where there is no staff, and to open the office, to receive clients, to receive sellers, to do due diligence on real estate on the moment, because some clients were passing through a building and they decided to select, and it was at that moment that we had to do the closing. So it was everything very intense.
Hmm.
At the same time, it was a huge school for us, because we had to organize ourselves. We had to learn how to do a lot of stuff in a very short period with a lot of attention to the detail, because we had no other opportunity. The client was about to leave, and it was a way to start developing some skills of replying in the moment to the needs. And I would say that for that, working with Asian partners and clients makes the difference.
It's quite a shift from doing other areas of law and going to immigration, especially when it's private clients. I know immigration work can be super personal in the way you build relationships. Do you have any client stories that you could share that, cemented that for you, that it's not just the usual type of law, it's something that's a lot more personal to the people that you work with?
Yes, several from clients that were willing to come to Portugal because their home country was a little bit restricted regarding their sexuality and their partners, or because of the sexuality or partners of their children.
Hmm.
Others because of school opportunities or even security of the children to be in Portugal. Other fun stories of babies that they had to change the diapers in the meeting room, meetings that took 12 hours with the Asian clients with kimonos. For
Right.
us, it was very, very funny. Not especially in that moment, because on a Saturday, it's not what we are willing to have. and just to grab a McDonald's by the end of the entire day because we were closed in a meeting room. But now with some distance, there were very funny times.
This definitely sounds like it.
And
Did
there
you
are
have
clients from those times that still connect with us after all of those years, more than 15, more than 10, because Golden Visa started afterwards. And it's fun because times to times they send us pictures. When they are in Portugal, I'm here, I'm here. And a very fun one was a couple that I assisted since the beginning of the Golden Visa, so Golden Visa, residency, and citizenship. And they show me a picture of them, the family, with the small kids when they arrived to Lisbon, nearby a monument. And the same photo nowadays with the kids taller than the fathers, than the
right?
parents, in the same monument, and going back with the Portuguese passport for their trip to Maldives because they bet that when they receive the Portuguese passport, we will go to Maldives to celebrate. So it was very fun to see that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's definitely unique for immigration that you get to see the family, not just for the highlight when they're relocating, whether it's for security or for different opportunities, but the fact that you continue to work with families for many years to come and usually do stay in touch with them.
Yeah. It's fun and interesting to see the kids growing up, people becoming older and having other perspectives on life. It's very interesting.
Did you have in the early days, did you have like an aha moment that this is not just a new thing, like a recent legislation, but that it will be a trend for the decades to come?
I would like to have that feeling, but I never had the opportunity to have that feeling. We were told when this program started in Portugal, because it was a program that already existed in other countries, that usually those programs lasted for 5 years and then they ended.
Hmm.
So we were very expecting that, okay, we will have those clients, it's for 5 years, then they do citizenship, and this ends. In the 7 to 10 years, this ends. But the program continued to stay alive, although with major changes. It already had four big changes in the options of investment and tickets and requirements of investment. But it stayed. And what we can see is that the type of client is also adjusting to the
Hmm.
options of investment, to the tickets of investment. The reasons to do this kind of application also change. In the beginning, were a lot of Asians doing it. Now it's almost 80% US people.
Hmm.
So the motivations are also changing on regions, not on their nature, because what makes people look for a plan B, regardless the place we are coming from. But I would say that we never had that feeling that this is going to be a trend because the program is always changing or with big changes, and we always have this not fight but some challenge from the European community,
Hmm.
European Commission, regarding these kinds of programs, mostly for CBI programs, citizenship by investment, but that create a huge drama and litigation back in Malta. In Portugal, our program is different. Is RBI, is residency by investment, so was not directly syndicated by the European Commission, but they did some recommendations. And the Portuguese government was never super promoter of this kind of program, so we never
Hmm.
had that certainty that the program was about to continue or that it was to be a very long-term program to be enforced. So basically, we live from legislative change to legislative change, or from government to government, depending what is their position regarding these kind of programs. Previous, the government or the political party that is now in force, it was actually the one that created this program. Okay,
Hmm.
so back in 2020 and 13, and they say that they want to keep the program, that is an interesting program, they want to make it more appealing and attractive. So we now at least know that for the next 4 years we will have this kind of program. We don't know in which exact terms because it's possible that they will do some amendments, but at least we have that visibility, but never on a long term, always on a short medium term.
It's definitely true that immigration policies in Portugal and in many other European and other countries as well are changing all the time. And that can be quite tricky to work with because, like you mentioned, the nature of the clients, where they're coming from changes, the rules are changing. How have you stayed up to date, both in, of course, the current law and also to be involved maybe in the conversation about what the changes might be coming next?
Yeah. So it's exhausting because we first of all we need to be aware of what are the directions from European Union. After that, we need to be aware of what is the directions of our competitors, and
Mhm.
then what is happening at home, so in Portugal. And here, besides what is out, we always try to be involved in the legislative process, not only every time there are changes, but also anticipating some needs or to adjust the program or to adjust the proceedings. So basically, we do that through an association. Besides a law firm, we also are part of an association in Portugal, and we use that association to gather players of the market and to be able to collect inputs
Mhm.
regarding what the country needs and how these kind of programs can adjust to the needs of the country and also the needs of the applicants. So we do proposals, we do legislative inputs, we participate in the meetings with the different political parties, and we try to be as much as updated as we can on all the fronts so that we can have a more broader
Mhm.
vision on what is happening on this kind of programs abroad and in Portugal. In that perspective, we then have some more clarity to explain to clients the reasons why something is behind a delay, the reasons why something is about to change. And sometimes we feel that explaining to the clients the grounds and the basics of what is behind lead them to be more calm and to accept better the changes. Because sometimes it's just to explain the reasons. And they are humans, they also work, they also have their challenges, so they can understand if something is explained to them. And the big conclusion that we always try to pass to the services is you need to communicate. You need to communicate with the players so that the players can manage the expectations of the applicants,
Mhm.
and that facilitates a lot the work of everybody.
Certainly. I think there is no such thing as over communication. If there
Never.
is more clarity, it only helps.
More or less, because one thing that we feel is that every time, and in this part, the Portuguese government is being the worst. That is, every time they want to change the program, they just spit it out something
Mhm.
without much sense and without being the definitive stuff that they will change, and the market goes crazy from Asia to India to US to Australia. We just receives a lot of WhatsApp messages and articles of newspapers saying that golden visa is to end, clients aren't protected. And that's nothing like that. So the information circulates a huge velocity, but without the detail and the and
Mhm.
being accurate as it's important to clients. So in that perspective, we try to be a little bit more on top of the wave, and we are always communicate through LinkedIn and to the Prime Legal WhatsApp channel, so that we have the concrete information there, without all the mediatism and all the drama that sometimes social media includes.
I want to double click on that because that will, I think, will be a good advice for your immigration colleagues in other countries. There are firms that try not to get ahead of communications. Maybe they justify it that they're busy. Maybe they don't want to promote something if the law might change. But having things like WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups and being, involved in those different organizations, even if the government decides to go another direction, being active, I think, is very reassuring to the clients. And no client will ever say, "Oh, you guessed what will happen wrong," and use that as a reason, not to work with your firm. But for the skeptics out there that are not investing into creating their channels, whether it's a WhatsApp group or being involved with association, what is your advice now that you've been doing this for a number of years?
So I would say that it's a huge responsibility from the moment that we decide to be on top of the wave and to do these communications as soon as something comes out. It's a huge responsibility because we are also leading interpretations and we are also putting something out in the market without being 100% sure, because we you always know that one thing is what is in the law and 100 things is what each lawyer will interpret from the law. But on the opposite side, I think that facilitates a lot in managing the client expectations and in keeping the clients informed and calm, especially if you can pass the message in a very objective and calm way, because people most of the people are reasonable. So they can read, they can understand if things are explained to them. And I always try to put myself in the shoes of the clients. Would I like to have an investment of 500,000, uh, I would say, in UK, and I'm in Portugal. I'm very far away. What is happening there? Should I trust what is in the media and what is in the social groups at different platforms? Or would I prefer to receive an update, even if a small one, from my lawyer saying the government is about to change the law is not yet defined, stay tuned for more information? I would like to have that comfort that my
Mhm.
lawyer is aware and that will inform me when I need to know that information.
Has that also helped not just with the clients and them being informed, but also with intermediaries and other professionals that normally refer business to you?
Yes, all of our emails are dear client and partner. We always share the same information for clients and for partners, the ones that bring business, the ones that don't bring business. We prefer to add our interpretation and our information to the people out there, and are always available then to follow up and to make the clarifications.
One of the things we were talking about earlier before recording is that immigration is one of those areas of law where there are a lot of younger lawyers jumping and trying to start their firm.
Yeah, because they think it's easy.
Having been in the trenches for some time now, what's your take on that level of enthusiasm and how maybe you manage things internally from the training perspective?
So, my comments on that are the following. At least in the Portuguese market, we can see that regarding immigration in particular, it was something that it was an area that was like the poor cousin of the
Hmm.
family. So, nobody wanted to invest. People that were allocated to this kind of teams sometimes were not the best professionals, let's say. So, and also with the problem that in Portugal the law course and even the training the bar association they didn't include immigration, so it's something that you just learn if someone teach you or if you study by yourself by applying the law. And that was one of the reasons why we also created the association, was to bring a little bit more professionalism to the sector,
Hmm.
because we felt that a lot of clients that arrived to us already with ongoing processes, they complained that that was filed, but the immigration office says that it will be refused. The deadline was this. I don't understand why my family members were not filed. So a lot of questions that we understand at the end, that the reason why those questions now exist or those problems now exist, it was because the advice was not so good. So my perspective on that is immigration is a serious, very serious area of the law
Hmm.
that, in this particular case of investment migration, touches not only with very huge amounts of money, but also with the lives of the applicants and the families. So it's important to have the responsibility of knowing exactly what we are doing. I do not take it easy. That is just to start doing it because
Hmm.
you think that is easy to file a golden visa application. There is more behind a golden visa application, and the devil is in the details, and that's
Hmm.
the best expression for immigration. Other than that, I would say that for sure there are huge opportunities to develop. And I would say that eventually now the market is a little bit saturated because a lot of big law firms, they lost collaborators to start other practices. There are also consultants. There are also people that are not neither consultants, neither
Hmm.
immigration lawyers, and they do it. So it's important to look for the right professional, and the right professional should be licensed, the right professional should have experience, and the right professional should know the program that you are looking for, because not all the immigration lawyers know about all the programs, not all the programs are exactly the same to be followed. So that is important when selecting a legal advisor.
Just like you would do that selection when you're hiring potentially a team member, given your experience, what would be your advice to a potential client of selecting the right advisor and the right firm for them?
So it depends a little bit on the profile of the clients. We have clients that sometimes they are looking for a big structure because it's what they know. They
Hmm.
are from US, they are used to work with big law firms, and they don't feel comfortable with small law firms. And in that case, I always try to explain to the clients that everything depends on what they will need. And it's not because it's a big law firm that their immigration department is good or experienced.
Hmm.
So I always say to go for the person and not for the firm, and the person that brings you more confidence in terms of track record with what you are looking for. Are you looking for a D7, a passive income visa? So maybe lawyer X is the one that makes more sense. Even within a team, within a law firm, are you looking for a golden visa for investment purposes and plan B? So try to look for a lawyer that have track record on that. And even sometimes the origin of the client, if it is from US, if it is from Middle East, if it is from Asia, may have specificities in terms of documentation and formalities that some lawyers may be aware of and other
Hmm.
lawyers don't. So that experience is also relevant for the purpose.
That's a good advice for sure. And in terms of maybe a hot take, but when you think about the options that the clients have and different citizenship investment programs, which ones currently available do you think are overrated or underrated? If you want to give me the both ends of the spectrum.
So at this moment, the Portuguese program has 5 options, and I would say that only 2 work
Hmm.
or are selected by investors, and they are completely different. One that goes for 90% of the applicants is the investments in funds, so venture capital funds.
Hmm.
It's a half a million investment that the client can use in one Portuguese fund or different Portuguese funds. Those funds, although Portuguese, they may have investments abroad. And basically, the client with that investment, although it's an investment with risk, the client may have returns if the fund performs well. And in this perspective, I think it was mentioned in The Economist or The Times that the Portuguese funds were performing above the expectations. So that's something to be proud of and a good market for the investors. Alternatively, there are clients that go for what we call the cultural option, that
Hmm.
is basically a donation that starts on the 200,000, pure donation and without tax benefits, is pure donation for purpose of support of arts, recovery of national heritage. So it's a totally different perspective. Sometimes the reasons to select one or another are more connected with the cultural option, where we have clients that are more interested in contribute for good causes, let's say less
Hmm.
capitalism, or because of the tickets. And they think that venture capital funds are also risky. Why should I risk half a million if in this case I just put 200 and all of my family is included? So if I divide this for all, it's not so expensive as it should think at the first place.
Those are interesting. I think also on the topic of advising the clients and signing the clients as immigration practice, one of the things that comes in the law as a business, not just the practice law itself, is qualifying for good clients. So in your experience, when you have that initial conversations, are there any red flags in the clients that you're looking to make sure that they're not a good fit for you and they will be difficult because it's such a long-term relationship?
Yes, but I have a default that is
Hmm.
I accept all clients.
Right.
I cannot say no to a client. And I will give you a fun story about that. But by rule, I accept all the clients, even the ones I think that will be hard clients and difficult clients. Sometimes what may exist is that we may adjust the proposal to client need level, because
Hmm.
there are some clients that are normal clients, there are clients that are autonomous clients, and there are clients that will need everything to be done on their behalf,
Hmm.
even going to their home to collect documents to bring to Portugal. So those clients, of course, they have a different treatment, but I usually don't refuse any kind of client because it will be a difficult client. I have colleagues in the firm that are different.
Hmm.
That depending on the profile of client, for instance, those clients that they start the meeting or half of the meeting is to get a request for a discount, they just say no, will not happen,
Hmm.
forget about it. Clients that pass a meeting asking the same question to have different answers. I also have colleagues that decide it's not a good fit. But by rule, when the clients arrive to us, they already know what they are looking for. So they
Hmm.
are not very green leads in the perspective that They know what they are looking for. They are just looking for selecting the final details. But the funny story is that I had a client. I have a client.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, I saw on the initial calls that will be a very difficult client
Mm-hmm.
because it was one of those clients that do everything he can to have the best tax exposure
Mm-hmm.
or the minimum tax exposure, etc., etc. And I thought, okay, it will be a difficult client. And let's do this proposal. Let's see. And at that moment, I thought that the client hadn't accepted. Okay, because he never said anything before afterwards. And then I started to work at working with another client, same first name but different emails. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't understood that it was the same client, and just months afterwards is that I understood that it was exactly the same
Right.
client, and that in the end I thought that I would didn't accept that client because it seemed a little bit over the
Mm-hmm.
place, and I ended by accepting it without knowing that it was that
Mm-hmm.
person. So it was
Yeah.
interesting.
Fascinating. When I talk to different firms doing immigration around the globe, it's interesting what you just said, that when clients come to you, they usually know what they want, even if sometimes they can be a little bit difficult to work with. When you first started, did you have an issue that some clients would come to you and they weren't as educated on their options, or they would ask for discount, they wouldn't have the budget necessary for the investment for the program? Was that ever an issue, and how did you solve that?
Not so much, because when we started this firm, we already had a good network, and within that network, the leads are already more or less qualified. But
Mm-hmm.
of course, during the life of the office, there are always clients that come and that don't have the necessary means for this kind of program, the Golden Visa, which does not mean that they don't have for other programs. So we always try to have in the initial call with the client an assessment what is the need of the client and the availability in terms of income of the client, and we suggest the best option for him, provided that he is looking for Portugal and to relocate. If is not the topic and we see that the client is looking for other plan B and the prices of Portugal does not fit, then we have partnerships with other colleagues in other programs in other jurisdictions that can be cheaper, and
Mm-hmm.
we coordinate with them the possible solutions for this kind of clients.
Certainly. How typically, because every firm approaches this differently, but if the client does come and you mentioned your policy on that, they start asking for a discount, or they say, "Oh, there is another immigration firm that can do it cheaper." What's your default way typically to address that?
Well, there are several strategies. I always try to, I will only discuss discounts if I see the concrete proposal to
Mm-hmm.
start. It's not just I have a better proposal from X. No, I need to see the proposal and I need to know from where.
Mm-hmm.
And then, depending from where is the farm, I may see if there are any margin or something that we can offer to the clients, or the process of a family member, or a discount in the renewal, or an additional advice that was not included, to see if we can match the client expectations. Having always in mind that we always need to explain our track record, our target of clients, the experience we have, what kind of professionals the client will be dealing with, the fact that the lawyers are always available by WhatsApp to reply to the client, and all of those little details, they also need to be paid, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's different the service you get in a tailored boutique law firm from a different law firm where you file your application and within 1 week you will have a reply regarding your documents.
Right. It's a different service, different peace of mind, and especially if they're making the
Exactly.
investment, it's worth it. You mentioned that you have a referral network that sends clients that are already qualified. What is now, maybe for the last 12 months, the main way how you start new relationships?
We always bet on conferences. Okay, I think that our strategy is always to go to conferences on the on this kind of area, investment migration, but also some out of this wealth managers conferences, conferences on general immigration, conferences on real estate. So we
Hmm.
try to go out where the clients are. So we travel, for instance, to US at least 3 to 4 times
Hmm.
a year, and to other jurisdictions. And other than that, we work a lot with through LinkedIn and social media, and articles, because at least from my personal perspective, I always like to the clients to know that the lawyer they are working with writes about something, which means that at least study about something.
Hmm.
Which I try to improve that in my team so that they can study and they can write about something because that facilitates their work in the future.
So your advice to the skeptics in the industry that don't do articles, they don't do WhatsApp groups, do it because it definitely works.
For me, it works, but that's my strategy and I like it. And I like to write articles. So,
Perfect. So both benefits at the same time. In terms of the referrals and other businesses that typically refer businesses, clients to you, what has been the best sources of referrals, and maybe what are some of the surprising maybe professionals that you've established a relationship with?
I always think that the surprises are colleagues from other countries. Okay, because I found it that sometimes it's hard for you to keep in mind that, oh, I met someone from Portugal, let's put me her in contact with this client. So every time that happens, I am so grateful and very happy that they remember me. But in terms of volume, I would say that definitely immigration consultants, which is a kind of sector that is growing a lot, are the ones that can bring more business in terms of volume, not necessarily in terms of legal fees.
But the volume. Interesting. How frequently do you stay in touch with them? Both potential colleagues that refer the business, but also the client conversations? Because my guess is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not always that you have the conversation and the client immediately is ready to start.
Yeah. So in terms of colleagues, usually we do times to times some updates or
Hmm.
through social media or through WhatsApp channel or through email. And I send updates regarding Portugal and I said just in the subject Portugal and I put 3 or 4 topics.
Hmm.
That way I hope that if Portugal comes out in their lives, they will associate to me. In terms of potential clients, usually I try to do every month a follow up on the previous leads to know if the status is the same, if they need any further clarification.
I think that would be very valuable advice because unfortunately, I know way too many immigration professionals that talk to client once and then say, well, if they need us, then they will come and talk to us
I
themselves
know I chase them a little bit, not much, but a little bit.
in a helpful way, right? With the updates and
Yeah,
news
yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. Do you know what is usually the sales cycle for a typical client from you, from the first time when you engage in a conversation about their immigration options to them saying, yes, we are ready to start?
It depends a lot, but usually clients they are looking for a plan B. Then they see some options in terms of countries of destiny. Most of them, sometimes they never went to Portugal and they choose Portugal, which is a curious fact.
Hmm.
From the moment that they choose Portugal, then the next step is the law firm, and
Hmm.
after the law firm is the investment. So basically, are the stages that the client follows. And in terms of timings, sometimes it can be 1 week if the client is super concerned about
Hmm.
political or security reasons,
Right.
or it can take 1 year or more than 1 year to decide. And sometimes we speak with clients that were aware about the program under the previous rules, and now it's totally different with different options of investment. We have to start all over again, explaining what is the current requirements.
Interesting. It definitely can be a very wide
Yeah.
timeline depending on the clients and their circumstances. From the business development perspective this year, what are the big goals that you have to achieve in 2026?
So the goals for sure is to grow. We are recruiting to increase the team. We are planning to offer a more complete service to the client. So we are diversifying also in the areas that we are recruiting to have more corporate, to have more tax, and to have more litigation. Because with all the delays in the Portuguese program and the changes in the law, we anticipate that eventually litigation may be a need for some clients. Other than that, we are diversifying also in terms of jurisdictions in the perspective of offering Portugal together with other programs that eventually will lead to European citizenship faster than the anticipated 10 years that the Portuguese government is about to discuss and to change the law. And real estate is something that is growing in the last years in Portugal. and continues to be a huge market. And we can see from the latest statistics that foreigners are now betting in Portugal as a secure jurisdiction for diversifying investment, including real estate. So it's an area that for sure will be of interest for 2026.
Perfect. Well, that's a good goal. What do you think will be the biggest, operationally maybe, or from a business development perspective, given your track record, what do you think would be the biggest obstacle to overcome?
In Prime Legal, at this moment, for sure, the space. Because our office, we already have a big team.
Mhm.
We are limited in terms of space, and we are having a conversation if we should change facilities to big ones or not. I'm more conservative. I'm the most conservative partner in the firm. So for me, it's a step that I'm not yet confident to give. But in this is an obstacle that we have to overcome because people need space, and we like to provide good environment for people to develop their work and to grow. So it's something to have in mind for this year.
I think that's a wonderful challenge to have.
It is, but then the real estate market is so hot that the prices are super high.
Of course, of course. Perfect. Well, Sarah, where can our listeners learn more about your work and the work of your firm?
So I think the best way to reach me is through LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, you will find all of my details. The website of the Prime Legal, where you can book meetings. My WhatsApp, I'm always available through WhatsApp, and even on the direct messages, happy to assist and be available for you that are listening this podcast.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Alex. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.